Let's stay with that issue and speak to Omry Makgoale, a political commentator and also an ANC veteran. Tate Makgoale, thank you so much for your time this evening. What do you make of these claims that are circulating in the public domain?
They're really worrying. These claims are worrying, but we don't really know exactly who was in the formation of COPE. We don't really know. So it would be good, in fact, to investigate and to establish actually who were behind the formation of COPE. We don't really know exactly. And whatever JJ is saying, if he's got proof of that, it would be good that we, the ANC members, should know, and the public should know actually who was behind the formation of COPE. Well, what we know is that, of course, COPE was formed because of personality clashes. It was not policy clashes. The people who left ANC to form COPE had the same policies the ANC had, Freedom Charter, and it was more about personality clashes. But we don't know. We don't know who formed COPE and the behind forces, and it would be good to investigate.
Were there no suspicions in the background, though? Because you are in the party, so certainly you might be privy to some corridor discussions.
I think what we are aware of is that we are aware that the supporters of former President Thabo Mbeki were behind. But as to who exactly of those supporters, of who of those ministers were actually working to form COPE, we don't really have a proof of that. And it would be good not to, to speculate, because we need facts to establish actually who were behind. So it would be good to investigate. And I think maybe Minister Lindiwe Sisulu, in this case, maybe she's right. It's important that President Ramaphosa can actually institute an investigation into this to actually establish who were behind the formation of COPE, rather than to speculate.
And listening to what you're saying, of course, so when you even see part of what is said to be in that letter that has now been leaked, that the tourism minister said to have written, one of the things she talks about is that, you cannot simply dismiss this as gossip, because Mr. Tabane was in the thick of things during the formation and the early years of COPE. And she also then talks about the fact that this is going to be important into the work of the ANC, especially going into the conference. I'll get to the conference in just a moment, but how do you call on then the president, as you say that he must investigate this? Where does he begin?
I think the question is to institute internal investigation into, because it's an...
Tate Makgoale, I'm not sure if you are muted again. We can't hear you. Tate Makgoale? Tate Makgoale, we are struggling to hear you. I'm not sure if you are on mute.
So sorry, I missed that.
Oh, yes.
What I'm saying?
Please start. Yes. Please start again to answer the question. We lost you.
Yes, what I'm saying is that it's important that the president institute an internal investigation into the formation of COPE, especially if there's evidence or suspicions, such as from JJ Tabane, that some cabinet members, some former cabinet members, some former NEC members were involved in this. It's important to establish the facts rather than to live on speculation, so that we have the facts, concrete facts on the table, and then we can then take the matter to them and ask them, how could you do such a thing,
How much damage could this do to the party? Because she also talks about the fact that, it's concerning, of course, that as you say, there may be some of the leaders who may have remained. At the same time, she's concerned that there might be more that comes out. I suppose that might be inevitable because this matter is going to the courts. But how much damage can this do to the party?
Well, basically, the damage was done at that time when COPE was formed, and it continued to be done later when EFF was formed. So the damage has been done. And for now, it will just help to expose maybe the rogue forces internally inside the ANC who were actually involved in the formation of COPE and continue to be undercover. So, and we were not aware of them. But it would be good for us as ANC members to know them, to know that these are the people who actually formed COPE, and to try and establish what were the reasons for them to form COPE, and we to work on the basis of facts rather than speculations at the moment. I think it's important to establish the facts.
In your view, how does this impact then the December conference?
I think, in my mind, the December conference will be affected one way or another, because if those people are exposed and those people who were involved in the formation of COPE are still inside the ANC and they are exposed, then they will have to come clean, before the December conference. They'll have to come clean. But in my mind, of course, the December conference is not really going to solve our current problems. According to our assessment, we still believe that we need to change how we elect leaders inside the ANC. We need to introduce one ANC member, one vote to elect leaders, rather than this branch delegate conference format. We believe that the branch conference delegate format is not the way to clean the ANC, it's not the way to renew the ANC. It's a method that should be scrapped in our mind, and a new method of electing leaders inside the ANC should be introduced.
Especially because we're seeing conferences being bogged down with issues of credentials instead of going into some of the very key discussions.
Yes, the credentials continue to be a problem, and the credentials are at the heart of the ANC capture. Every ANC conference, from the provinces, from the regions, are captured through delegates, at conferences, and it is because of the current method we use to elect leaders inside the ANC that the ANC is captured. And this is why we believe that the branch delegate method, where one delegate represents 50 members, that method should be scrapped once and for all, and we should introduce one ANC member, one vote for electing leaders. No longer the branch delegates. We have to clean the ANC, and we have to move away from this branch delegate conference, where every conference is a credentials problem. Every conference is featuring credentials problem. We need to sort it out, and we can only sort it out through one member, one group.
You talk about cleaning the ANC. I suppose, let me then indulge you on that. The issue of the step-aside resolution, I mean, the NEC came out, it strengthened it now. It says that those who have charges cannot then stand, but they are not applying this retrospectively because there are some of those leaders who are there. What do you make of these developments around the strengthening of the step-aside resolution?
Well, step aside, it's a partial method. It cannot solve the ANC problems. And this is why it continues to be trampled upon, the step aside method. As you see in eThekwini, Zanele Kumet, continue to be elected. In Mpumalanga, the leaders that are compromised continue to be elected. So basically, this method of step aside, it's just a partial method. It cannot solve ANC problems. So it's not the solution. It's a way of alleviating and to try and do what we call damage control. But it's not the solution to our problem. We need to change this method of electing leaders and introduce one ANC member, one vote.
I suppose
that is the way in the ANC.
I suppose then, listening to you, the threat that the former President Kgalema Motlanthe also spoke about again in the public domain, saying that the parties that will take South Africa into the future are still to emerge, saying that there might be a strong possibility of a no-dominant role for the ANC in the future. I'm listening to what you're saying. Are you saying then that you are agreeing with this, that the ANC faces a challenge when it comes to dominance, because we are seeing support dwindling and declining in the public domain?
Yes, I agree with that. The ANC is declining, and it's declining primarily because ANC is extremely corrupt internally, and the methods of electing leaders at the moment are compromised. And as long as we don't change this method, the ANC will continue to decline because of internal corruption. But what I want to say is that the ANC is the enemy of itself. It's internal enemy of itself. So an ANC is killing itself. What I would say is committing suicide. So if we don't change the way we elect leaders inside the ANC. Oh yeah, in the next elections, the ANC is likely to lose elections in Gauteng, is likely to lose elections in KwaZulu-Natal. Of course, the Western Cape is already gone, and the other provinces will also be, suffering. So basically, the ANC is killing itself. And unless we change how we elect leaders, it will continue to kill itself. So step aside are not enough. Those are methods are not adequate enough to save the ANC. So I think Comrade Halima is right in a way. If we don't clean the ANC, if we don't introduce one ANC member, one vote, it will definitely lose the next elections. So it's something that we should be aware of.
All right.
It's unfortunate.
Thank you so much for your time this evening as we talked then about that issue of those allegations when it comes to the formation of COPE and saying that they must be investigated, and of course also looking at the issues around the voting when it comes to some of the regional conferences of the ANC. That is political commentator as well as an ANC member, Omry Makgoale.